And then I one day didn't have a job and was going to go down to a restaurant to apply for a job to show people to their seats in the restaurant, Schraff's. And I ran into a young man who had been at the party that night. And Peter said to me, he said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm on my way to Schraff's right now to be interviewed to be a hostess at their restaurant. And he said, look, he said, I've got a game show that Goodson and Todman are going to be doing. And he said, it's not acting, but he said, it's a half-hour game show and you can make $300 a week. And I said, great. I said, that's wonderful. And so I went down to CBS and they hired me for the role on a game show called The Wheel of Fortune. This is long before Merv Griffin ever bought it and all. And the man was, I would introduce the people, I'd say, and Todd Russell, Mrs. So-and-so has come to spin the Wheel of Fortune. I at least talked. The poor girl, and the other one just... But we just had a little board, you know, it wasn't anything, no big deal. And then, I mean, all these things just kind of fell into place. I was really most blessed and most fortunate to have had the career that I have had in my lifetime. And the wonderful opportunity I've had to work with some absolutely wonderful people and who have all, you know, encouraged me. Imogene had encouraged me, all the people I worked with that summer. They said, don't stay in Chicago. Go to either coast, but you've got to get out of Chicago or you won't go anywhere. Well, my dear friends, may I say thank you for all the years that you have loved me, because it has come through to me. You know, it does. I have appreciated that, and that you all have allowed me in the long run to do what I enjoy doing so tremendously, which is to get up and perform and to be another person that lives inside of me, that comes out, and I really enjoy being an actress, and have always have too. And so I can't do it without you folks, you know. And I have a lovely leading man here that he and I have done love letters before. Love letters, everybody thinks this is a syrupy little Valentine. This is a very, very wonderful story about two people who have met in the 3rd grade and goes all the way on to the end of a big, long life of very interesting, and we don't just sit there and read it. We act it, even though we're there with the scripts in front of us and we're sitting. But it's a very exciting piece of theater, good theater piece. And you love doing it too, don't you, Will?
Yes.
Yeah. That's just about the way he acts it too.
Well, we're very excited to have you here.
How excited are you?
Very.
On the excitometer, how high does that go? Wow, that's pretty excited.
When you say there, folks, about there, very excited. And we're thrilled to have you here. We're having a great time. And like I mentioned before, I'll tell you, Will and Babs, as well as Betsy and the whole gang, this is a fun, entertaining group. And for those of you who are meeting them tonight or last night for the first time, speaking from Brian and the whole gang, this has been a great joy for all of us. Thank you for coming.
I want to congratulate you and your wife for creating this miracle. I mean, this is the mecca of movies. When I was a kid, I grew up in a little place called Atwater, which is between the mighty LA River and the Glendale train tracks. And we're right next to Griffith Park, and the great director, King Vidor, used to say, a tree is a tree, shoot it in Griffith Park. And by George, they did. And every time we heard they were making a movie over there, we'd hop aboard our Schwinn's and race across the bridge. And I became movie crazy very young. And I was even in a W.C. Fields movie, Never Give a Sucker an Even Break.
Really?
Yeah, there's a big chase at the end where the fire engine gets hooked up with W.C.'s car, and they pull a Huey right on Glendale Boulevard. And in the background, you see a crowd. I'm in that crowd. We got a free lunch.
Discovered.
Got a free lunch.
Discovered. Tell us about your TV career.
Oh, well,
Back. That's good.
well, I did Sweet Toes, as
Sure.
Jocko Mahoney used to call it, Sugarfoot, and had to fake it. I had that wonderful horse who I thought was the real star of the show because he made me look a lot better than I was. And then after Sugarfoot, I became the king of the unsold pilots. I mean, everything I did, it didn't sell, but I did one that I really liked called Gun Shy, where I could really be a funny cowboy. Because I was always trying to sneak jokes into Sugarfoot, and they'd cut a lot of them out. I always wanted to be this funny guy on the screen, and so I made this one called Gun Shy, a goofy cowboy. And my hero when I was a kid was Harold Lloyd.
Awesome.
My grandparents lived right next to his dad, Foxy
Really?
Lloyd, and I grew up with the lore of Harold Lloyd. I got to meet him once. Did you know he only had 3 fingers on his right hand? Mm-hmm. His thumb and forefinger were blown off by a prop bomb.
Train wasn't it?
Prop bomb.
Yeah.
And so I got to meet him once, but I did this thing, and I did a funny fall in it, and I copied a fall I'd seen him do in a picture called Professor Beware. And as fate would have it, it was for Screen Gems over at Columbia, and as fate would have it, he saw that pilot, and he said, "By Jove," or what words to that effect, "that's the only guy I know of that can do my kind of stuff. We ought to get together and do a pilot, and do a TV series." And actually that was going to be like the greatest dream you could ever dream was going to come true. And I was going to play a small town veterinarian. We had the first shot worked out. I'm walking to work, it's a small town. I'm walking to work, and all the dogs and the cats follow me down the street. But that's as far as it got. He was getting pretty old by then, and about my age, and kind of lost his momentum.
Well, now, in some different things I've read, they compared you when, according to what I read, they said when you were chosen for the part of Sugarfoot, it was because you reminded them of...
Oh, yeah, well, when I went to work at Warner Brothers, my name was Marshall Lowell Hutchison. They thought that was too long, so they shortened it to Will Hutchins. A year later, they hired Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. But I did these test scenes to get my contract, and one of the guys that directed me was David Butler, who directed Will Rogers' last movie in Old Kentucky, which is did you ever see an Old Kentucky?
Oh yeah, very incredible.
He tap dances just as good as Bill Bojangles Robinson. Mm-hmm. There was no end to that guy's talent. Well, I guess I reminded David Butler a little bit of, I don't know why, but I did in some way remind him of Will Rogers, so they shortened my name to Will Rogers Jr. No, they didn't. No, it was Will Hutchins.
And if you're familiar with Will Rogers, just an incredible entertainer and comedian.
And he was a terrific actor.
Very good.
He made up a lot of his own dialogue because he didn't have time to learn the script. He was always busy doing so many. He was the most popular newspaper columnist I think there ever was in America.
Just a tremendous talent. Died tragically, of course, in an airplane crash. And Will reminded, correct me if I'm wrong, reminded this director of him.
Yeah.
And you were chosen for the part of Sugarfoot, somewhat based on that. Am I correct?
Yeah, I did a few bucolic, country bumpkin kind of parts for them, and then kind of evolved into Sugarfoot. And this is a coincidence too. Sugarfoot was based on a movie called The Boy from Oklahoma, starring Will Rogers Jr.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, with Sugarfoot, if you would share with us real quick, budget, shooting schedule, that in a nutshell. Big budget, small budget, quickly, got to get it done, got to move it.
Warner Brothers here.
Oh, well, there you go.
We never left the back lot or the sound stage. Sometimes we'd use stock footage from expensive westerns, and I always knew we were using stock footage because I didn't have to wear my regular outfit. I got to wear Errol Flynn's shirt once and Walter Brennan's belt, and my biggest thrill was wearing Humphrey Bogart's pants. I couldn't fit into his boots, but I could fit into his pants.
Henry Fonda.
Henry Fonda, a very silent man, a very quiet man. Yeah.
Unlike me.
But I enjoyed, and unlike you, what there?
You worked with him in?
I worked with him in Mr. Roberts, And then I worked also with him in the Tin Star after that. Actually, Mr. Ford never finished Mr. Roberts. They brought in, Mervyn LeRoy. But Henry, I guess, and Mr. Ford had a get-to with one another. What happened is that when Mr. Ford was working, he didn't drink. But if we were in Hawaii, and he was there with all of his old Hawaiian friends, and he brought the yacht over, and down the beachcomber was closed, and I think he just started to celebrate. And he and Henry got into fisticuffs one day, and that was the end of Ford being on the film.
Well, we were old buddies. We were unemployed actors, pardon the redundancy. We used to hang out at a place called Madame Poopy's on the Sunset Strip, pardon the redundancy. And that was a great hangout for all of us guys. And one day he got mad at the waitress. She did something and he just cleared the table like that. Well, later his friend Carol Eastman used that scene in 5 Easy Pieces. And we were buddies. We were good pals.
Oh, Jimmy. We called him Jimmy in those days. Now if you say Jimmy Dean, it's the pork sausage fellow, I guess. But we always called him. And I worked with him. We did a Studio One together and a Danger together and a half-hour dramatic show. And we were both from Indiana, just kind of got together. I cooked well. I had food, he didn't. I had an apartment. He finally did have one. We dated and were together, dating. I don't know, about 9 months.
Well, along with Betsy, the two most enjoyable people I've worked with, I've never come close to reading anything that captured his essence because he had so many levels. I mean, you think of him as the king. We've seen these documentaries when he went on the concert tour when he was putting on a lot of weight. But geez, he was still a magnificent performer. And he had to have bodyguards, hundreds of bodyguards to get out of the... Elvis is out of the... he had that. Then he was the big movie star, And then he was Elvis, the real human being. And he was like a host because making his movies was like one big party. And he was the host, making sure everybody was having a great time. And he was just such a sensitive, thoughtful guy. And I don't think the publicity really comes close to... He had all these problems because he brought them on himself, I guess, by letting too many other people come into his life and taking a chunk out of him because he could have done it all himself. I remember Pruitt in... what's that? From Here to Eternity. He said, if a man don't go his own way, he's nothing. Well, Elvis was plenty, but he didn't, unfortunately, really go his own way, and that was his tragedy.
Oh, I liked Joan Crawford. She was a good lady. Tough, but we did Queen Bee together. Of course, we showed it the other night. And no, she was I respected her. She respected me. And we stayed friends until the end of her life. Good life. She might have been difficult on those kids, but kids can drive you crazy. And she was right about wire hangers, right, ladies?